PavJ News at 6. Have you ever wondered why it is that couples of 64 years and older and children have moved out and away from home decide to smoke roll-your-own tobacco cigarettes over the more commonly used tailored cigarette? Well, tonight on PavJ News, we have a special news report exploring the reasons and influences that causes these people to make these extremely interesting decisions. We'll shortly be crossing over live to our reporter in the field, who's going to give us an in-depth and exclusive interview with a member who fits into this demographic. Over to you, Paris.
Thanks, Steve. So today I'm here with Keith. So can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Keith. I'm 67. I've been retired 2 years. I'm living with my wife at home currently, and she doesn't know I'm a smoker.
Okay, so how long have you lived in Melbourne?
I've been living in Melbourne most of my life, born and bred here. I have been living in Craigieburn the past 20 years, and before that I was living down near Belgrave.
Yep. So have you got any kids?
I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, all in their mid to late 30s. Yeah.
Have they moved out now?
They moved out mid-20s or so.
Yeah, okay. So is there a heavy smoking culture in Melbourne, do you believe?
I definitely believe so. Most of the kids here get started young. That smoking culture is developed early. I feel like it's just common in families. Kids see it and eventually get to it themselves in high school.
So you don't think in your age bracket there's a heavy smoking culture?
Not in my age bracket. People tend to keep that stuff quiet, but can't say I don't have my own circle.
Yeah, so how long have you been smoking?
I've been smoking most of my life, probably like 45 years. Started when I was a late teenager.
And so would you say when your kids left home, did this increase or decrease?
Oh, it increased more than not, because yeah.
Do any of your kids smoke?
None of my kids smoke. I never let that stuff get near them.
Yeah, so why do you choose roll your own?
I choose roll your own because I have a pension to work with. Expensive hobbies like golf and hunting, so I got to keep my habits cheap. That's why roll your own is the best for me.
And you don't have any ways to reuse your tobacco, do you?
I didn't even know reusing tobacco was a thing. I'm gonna have to look into that one and get into it. Saves me money.
Yeah, so would you consider quitting?
Not at this age. I'm too far gone. It only increased once my kids moved out, so I don't see myself quitting. I mean, look at my age. Why would I stop now?
Where do you purchase your tobacco?
Purchasing my tobacco mostly when I'm on the road, so like service stations. Other than that, maybe if I need it off a friend, go grab something off them, or just Coles and Woolies, anywhere in general.
Do you mind if I ask a bit about your smoking habits?
Go right ahead.
So how many times a day around roughly do you smoke?
Well, used to be quite a bit less when my kids were around, had to dodge them, had to dodge the wife. Now, just walk down the street, maybe a couple times a day, probably around 4 or 5 times a day really.
So you mentioned before that you had to dodge your wife. Does she know you smoke?
No, she has not known I smoke since I've been with her. I've been with her very happy about 35 plus years, and to this day I haven't let that come to her ears that I smoke.
Do you have any triggers that start your smoking?
I mean, maybe I did back in the day. Now it's just habit. I mean, how many triggers can an old man have that lives at home?
Thanks for your time, Keith. Back to you, Steve.
Wow, thanks Paris for that extremely insightful interview. People over the age of 65 currently make up around 15% of Australia's population, 9% of which are smokers. Based on a special PavJ research report, we've found that the majority of roll-your-own smokers over 65 are male and generally come from a lower socio-economic background. They also typically started smoking in their teens and 20s. The most common reason roll-your-own smokers choose to smoke roll-your-own was primarily due to the cost. But many other people enjoy the process of rolling their own cigarettes, as it gives them a sense of satisfaction and makes them feel like an artist. A common misconception with roll-your-own smoking is that it is less harmful than smoking regular cigarettes. However, studies have shown that this is not the case. In fact, roll-your-own tobacco often contains more additives than regular cigarettes. Thank you for joining us for this special segment. Join us again tomorrow night for people who treat their canines as family members. I've been your host, Stephen Bradbury, on PavJ News at 6.